Vital metal output in the mining industry, as well as key crops in the agricultural sector, are flagged as the most at risk, according to the 6th PwC Economic Outlook report for this year. The impact on climate change has seen rising temperatures result in more drought. This is said to curb the supply of water for crop irrigation and agricultural processing, as well as mineral ore extraction and processing. It is further indicated that more heat stress also makes it harder for people to work outside, potentially leading to lower labor productivity and negative health impacts. Economist Xhanti Payi speaks to us about this. Thank you so much for your time, Xhanti. Quite a concerning picture. What impact does it have, first of all, on the overall economic growth in South Africa, along with activity?
Hi, Tumisang. It's really quite a concerning picture indeed, and it's quite important that we actually start to think about these things. I think many times we've been thinking about climate change as something that's coming at us, but I think what we are trying to argue here is that actually climate change is here. We should actually be able to adapt and make sure that we're actually making the right kinds of strategies and implementing the right kinds of plans and strategies, both in public and private sector. But I think mostly we say that it's important to collaborate around some of these issues, because clearly these have serious impacts on productivity and certainly economic growth and employment.
We know that the South African economy really relies on farming as well as mining as the base, especially when it comes to it being labor intensive. What then is estimated, especially around the drought impact on both these industries, and what the outlook really is there?
You're quite right, and I think when you actually mentioned these two sectors, agriculture is one sector we've been depending on in particular that we want to be able to grow over a period of time, because, as you say, that it's a sector that's very, very important because of that it is able to absorb labor. And so the critical impacts that we are seeing that it could have, especially when we think about productivity of certain crops, including maize, which is, of course, very, very important in South Africa, both for local consumption, but also for export growth. That's very, very important. So that is something that we are quite worried about. And that could have serious impact. We've seen regular impacts also, even in the insurance sector. If you think about the insurance sector that has to cover these, some of the impacts that we are seeing. And one of the key things there that we say is, if you think about it, some of the regular and most severe climate events have had devastating effects on the economy. And some of the and the insurance sector is starting to worry and wonder about whether or not some areas will be insurable, and that would have devastating effects, of course, because if, for example, we were to look at a place like KZN that has had these very, very serious events over the past couple of years, and the insurance sector said, look, we're not looking to insure that area, then you would lose the food productivity that you've got there, the businesses that are there, and all these have impacts on employment. They have impacts on food security, and certainly impacts on growth and investment, which we've been calling for so much. So the impacts are quite severe as we look ahead. And again, as I said, PwC, it's that many companies have not spent the time to really look at how they are being affected, how those businesses will be affected, and how those businesses have to make sure that they've got some kind of plan and kind of resilience strategies that they've put together to be able to get through these very, very serious impacts that we are expecting.
The job security aspect is also quite a big concern. How is that factored in terms of where it is in South Africa that we are looking to reach dangerous ground if this matter is not addressed immediately?
Absolutely. Look, that's one area. As I said, we talked about the sectors. That's important. Then we think about the sectors where the critical minerals, for example, are coming in. So we think about the mines and farms that are facing increasing water shortages. I think you said this very much clearly at the beginning of your introduction. And then there's reduced labor productivity. And if we look at all of that, and we see that in the key areas where we actually produce these commodities, that's something that is going to be quite worrying. So one of the key things tells us that government has to look at that, because clearly in the different areas where we have targeted growth in critical minerals, these include, things like iron ore, that's very, very important, and the rest of the the odds that we are actually creating for the, for the fourth industrial revolution, I guess some people say, or the new economy. So if we look at those areas, it is important that we look at that. And then we look at, of course, very, very important, we think about Northern Cape, for example. The Northern Cape is a really, really clear area of where some of these, critical minerals or minerals of the future are coming from. And we are seeing, of course, that there's really, really, especially for open mining, there's really key exposure there. And workers that are going to be in that area where there's heat stresses that will affect them because of course, of higher temperatures. Will actually affect people. So the Northern Cape is probably one key area. But as I said, that we've seen these events over the past year or so, and we classify, or we highlight where we've seen those events and how long they've been. So of course, heavy floodings in the Eastern Cape. We know that severe thunderstorms in the Western Cape, and then we think about cold-related events in the Free State. All of these areas have seen, severe issues over the past year, and that's where we think we continue to see these disruptions, these events, and they will really affect the way we do our work in the economy.
Thank you so much for your input. Xhanti Payi is an economist with PwC, talking us through that company's near-term outlook for South Africa, warning of the impact of drought as a result of climate change.